The crowd sat in silence, waiting. The air inside the studio felt heavier than usual, thick with something unspoken. Anticipation, maybe even tension. The cameras were rolling, but this wasn't just another debate. Something about tonight felt different. On one side of the table, JD Vance leaned back slightly, unreadable, as if he had already mapped out every move before the first question was even asked. Across from him, Lisa Carter tightened her grip on her notes. She had a job to do, to press, to push, to make him stumble. Millions were watching. Some tuned in to see Vance get cornered. Others hoped he would fire back harder than ever. But no one, not the audience, not the moderator, not even the debaters themselves, could predict what was coming. Because tonight wouldn't just end with words. Tonight would change everything. The moderator adjusted his glasses, scanning the notes in front of him. With a measured tone, he spoke. Tonight's debate focuses on government spending, social welfare, and the role of federal aid in American lives. Senator Vance, journalist Carter, let's begin. Lisa Carter wasted no time. Leaning forward, she met JD Vance's gaze head-on. Senator, you've consistently opposed expanding welfare programs, arguing they create dependency. But millions of Americans struggle every day. Isn't your stance not only impractical but also heartless? A murmur rippled through the audience. Some nodded in agreement, others sat still, waiting for his response. Vance remained composed. He sat back, fingers interlocked on the table, and took a moment before answering. Lisa, the real issue isn't whether people need help. It's why, after decades of massive spending, poverty rates haven't changed. The system isn't lifting people up, it's keeping them trapped. He let the words settle before continuing. Government should create opportunities, not lifelong dependency. We should be asking why so many people still rely on these programs instead of pretending more money will fix everything. Lisa didn't flinch. She had come prepared. Flipping through her notes, she found the point she wanted. Senator, you talk about self-reliance, but let's not forget, your own childhood was marked by struggle. Your memoir details hardships your family faced. Didn't government assistance play a role in helping you get where you are? A low hum spread through the room. Now it was personal. Vance exhaled, tilting his head slightly. Lisa, I know what it means to struggle, but I also know that what got me out wasn't a government check. It was family. It was discipline. It was mentors who pushed me to be better. He leaned in, voice steady. And I'll tell you what's truly heartless. Convincing people that their future depends on Washington instead of their own potential. The audience stirred. Some leaned forward, others whispered among themselves. Lisa tightened her grip on her pen, adjusting her posture. She wasn't finished. So, you're saying the government has no responsibility to help those in need? Vance shook his head. Not at all. I'm saying it has a responsibility to do it effectively. We've spent decades funneling billions into programs that haven't solved the problem. Bigger government isn't the answer. Better government is. Lisa's lips pressed together. She could see he wasn't rattled, but she wasn't backing down either. Then let's talk numbers, Senator. Your proposals would cut billions from federal assistance over the next decade. Do you really expect struggling families, underpaid workers, and disabled veterans to just figure it out on their own? The tension in the room thickened. Some nodded in agreement, others sat in silence, waiting for his next move. Vance didn't blink. I expect the government to stop treating people like statistics and start treating them like human beings. Silence hung in the air. Lisa glanced at her notes, preparing her next attack. The debate was far from over. Lisa didn't miss a beat. She turned a page in her notes and looked straight at Vance. Senator, let's look at the facts. Federal assistance programs exist because millions of people can't make ends meet. The poverty rate remains high because wages are too low, not because aid creates dependency. A few heads in the audience nodded. Some murmured in agreement. Vance adjusted his tie, showing no sign of hesitation. Lisa, if government aid were the solution, we wouldn't still be having this conversation. We've poured trillions into welfare programs for decades. Yet poverty rates have barely changed. That should tell us something. Lisa leaned forward. It tells us we haven't invested enough. The problem isn't aid, it's inequality. How can you claim to fight for opportunity when you support policies that take money away from struggling families? The tension in the room thickened. Some audience members exchanged glances. Vance's expression didn't shift. Because the issue isn't a lack of money, it's a lack of solutions. If throwing money at poverty worked, it would have disappeared years ago. But it hasn't, because these programs don't encourage growth. They just keep people in the same place. Lisa shook her head. You're missing the point. People don't stay on these programs because they want to. They stay because the economy isn't working for them. Single mothers, underpaid workers, disabled veterans. How are they supposed to survive without assistance? Vance exhaled slowly, keeping his voice steady. Lisa, we should be asking why a single mother working 2 jobs still can't afford rent. That's the real problem. Instead of trapping her in a cycle of handouts, we should focus on fixing wages, reducing costs, and creating real opportunities. Lisa flipped to another page, eyes scanning her notes. She needed to shift the argument. So, what's your solution? Take away assistance and hope the free market fixes everything. Vance leaned forward slightly. No, my solution is to reform these programs so they actually help people move forward. Right now, they don't. They keep people dependent instead of helping them gain independence. Lisa smirked. Independence? That sounds great in theory, Senator, but tell that to the millions of Americans who can't afford basic necessities. They don't have the luxury of waiting for better policies. A few quiet claps rippled through the crowd. Vance didn't waver. And that's exactly why we need change. Because if we keep doing the same thing, those millions of Americans will still be struggling next year, and the year after that. It's time we stop pretending short-term fixes are real solutions. Lisa narrowed her eyes. Cutting assistance while corporations get tax breaks. That's not reform, Senator. That's choosing winners and losers. Some audience members nodded in agreement. Others sat silently, waiting for his reply. Vance's jaw tightened slightly, but he stayed composed. You know what's interesting, Lisa? Every time someone suggests reforming these programs, the media spins it as cruelty. But let's be honest, how many success stories come from these systems? How many people actually break free? Lisa opened her mouth to respond, but Vance didn't give her the chance. The truth is, not many, because these programs aren't designed to help them out. They're designed to keep them in. The audience was locked in now. Some nodded. Others whispered in disagreement. Lisa exhaled sharply. She wasn't done. So, your solution is to take away what little help they have? Vance shook his head. No. My solution is to give them something better: education, real jobs, support systems that actually push them toward success instead of keeping them dependent. Lisa let out a dry laugh, shaking her head. That sounds nice, but tell that to someone who can't afford their next meal. A wave of applause broke out. Lisa had made her point, the moral argument. Vance leaned in slightly. And I'll tell you what's heartless, Lisa. Telling that person they'll always need government help instead of fighting for a system that actually allows them to succeed. Lisa's fingers curled around the edge of her notepad. The frustration was creeping in. She was used to leading the conversation, but Vance wasn't following the script. Still, she had one more card to play. The debate wasn't over yet. Lisa glanced down at her notes, flipping a page with deliberate care. She was searching for a way to regain control. Then she found it. Senator, let's talk about reality. The states with the highest poverty rates are mostly Republican-led. If conservative policies work so well, why aren't they working there? A few gasps rippled through the audience. Some people clapped. Others murmured in anticipation. Vance remained still. His expression didn't change. He let the question sit for a moment before responding. Lisa, if you're going to bring up numbers, let's be honest about them. Many of those states have struggled with poverty for generations, long before conservative leadership. Lisa opened her mouth to respond, but Vance wasn't finished. The real question isn't who runs these states. It's why poverty keeps getting worse despite decades of big government solutions. Lisa hesitated. It was slight, just a flicker, but the cameras caught it. The audience noticed too. Vance saw the weakness and pressed forward. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. "You know what's really happening, Lisa? The same people who claim to fight for the underprivileged are the ones keeping them exactly where they are." A hush fell over the room. Vance leaned in just slightly. "Because a dependent voter is a reliable voter." The silence broke. Some clapped. Others whispered in disbelief. A few shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Lisa forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She adjusted the microphone clipped to her blazer. "That's quite an accusation, Senator. Are you suggesting that government programs are designed to keep people in poverty?" Vance didn't blink. "Not designed, but convenient." The reaction was instant. Some people gasped, others exchanged looks. Even the moderator's expression stiffened. Lisa's fingers curled slightly around the edge of her notepad. She let out a small breath, rolling her shoulders back. "Senator, let's pivot for a moment. Since you're so concerned about dependency, let's talk about corporations. When working-class families receive assistance, it's called a handout. But when billion-dollar companies get tax breaks, it's called an incentive. How do you explain that?" This time, the audience erupted. Applause, cheers, even a few whistles. Lisa had found her counterattack. Vance nodded slowly, as if considering her words. Then he answered, "That's a fair question." The room quieted again. "And I'll tell you, I'm just as disgusted by corporate welfare as I am by government failure. But let's not pretend they're the same thing. A tax break for a company isn't the reason a single mother can't afford rent." Lisa lifted her chin slightly. "Then what is?" Vance didn't hesitate. "The real issue is why the cost of living keeps rising while wages stay stagnant. You want to talk about that?" The applause from Lisa's last remark faded. The energy in the room shifted again. Lisa tapped her pen against the table, glancing at her notes as if searching for her next move. But something was different now. She had challenged him. He had answered. But the debate was about to take an even sharper turn. And neither of them saw it coming. The debate ended, but the tension in the room didn't fade. The moderator gave a polite nod, signaling the conclusion. The cameras cut, the bright studio lights dimmed slightly, and the audience began to shuffle out. JD Vance unclipped his microphone, rising from his chair with the same calm demeanor he had held throughout the debate. Lisa Carter, on the other hand, exhaled sharply, her expression tight. She reached for her earpiece, pulling it off with a flick of her wrist. Her co-host approached, offering a few hushed words, but she wasn't in the mood for conversation. Frustration lingered in her eyes as she rubbed her temples. Then, thinking no one important was listening, she muttered under her breath, "He got lucky. If the moderators weren't so useless, I would have buried him." A nearby production assistant, unnoticed in the background, froze. The young staffer had been quietly packing up equipment, phone in hand. They weren't recording on purpose. It was habit, always capturing last-minute studio moments, just in case. Lisa continued, voice low but sharp. "People are too dumb to see what he's doing. It doesn't matter. We'll clean it up." She let out a sigh, rolling her eyes as she turned to her colleague. "God, I hate having to act like I actually care what these people think." The words hung in the air for only a second before she moved on, shaking off her irritation. She had no idea those few sentences would change everything. First, nothing happened. The crew wrapped up, the studio emptied, and the production team filed out. But that assistant, the one with the phone, stood in the hallway, replaying the recording, realizing what they had captured. They hesitated. It wasn't just another offhand comment. This was something different. Within an hour, the clip was shared in a private chat among media insiders. A few journalists laughed it off, calling it frustration after a tough debate. Others weren't so sure. Then someone leaked it. First, it appeared on a niche political forum. Then it hit Twitter. From there, it spread like wildfire. Within minutes, headlines were flashing across screens. Small Blue Diamond Lisa Carter caught mocking voters off-air. Small Blue Diamond leaked audio exposes media hypocrisy. Small blue diamond, I hate having to act like I care. Reporter under fire. The backlash was immediate. Some viewers felt betrayed. People who had trusted her to speak for them, to represent their struggles, now questioned everything. Others demanded an explanation, calling her words an insult to every hardworking American she claimed to defend. Supporters scrambled. Some insisted the clip was taken out of context, that she was simply venting after a heated exchange. But the damage had been done. The internet wasn't forgiving. By morning, the controversy dominated every major news cycle. Lisa Carter's Twitter account was locked. Her network released a carefully worded statement, vowing to uphold journalistic integrity. But it wasn't enough, because the clip wasn't just about her. It confirmed something deeper, something people had suspected for a long time. And the fallout was just beginning. Lisa Carter's world unraveled overnight. What started as a heated debate had turned into a national firestorm. The leaked recording wasn't just another media blunder. It was a moment that confirmed what many had suspected for years. By morning, her Twitter account was locked. Comments flooded her last few posts, calling her a fraud, a hypocrite, and worse. Some longtime viewers demanded she step down. Others defended her, arguing that everyone speaks differently behind closed doors. But the damage was already done. Her network scrambled to contain the situation. A carefully worded statement was released. Lisa Carter regrets the comments made in a private conversation. Frustration in high-pressure environments can lead to unfortunate remarks. This does not reflect our commitment to journalistic integrity. But the public wasn't buying it. So she regrets saying it out loud, not thinking it? One viral comment read, "If she hadn't been caught, would she have admitted it?" Another user posted, racking up thousands of likes. Meanwhile, JD Vance said nothing. No press statements. No victory lap. He didn't need to speak. The internet was doing the work for him. The story had moved beyond just one journalist's mistake. People began asking bigger questions. If she thinks this way, how many others do? The controversy was no longer about a debate. It had become about trust. And that was something no apology could fix. Lisa Carter would move on. The news cycle would shift. Another scandal, another controversy, another story would take its place. But something had changed. People were paying attention in a way they hadn't before. They weren't just watching the news, they were questioning it. The next time a journalist framed a debate, the audience wouldn't just listen. They would wonder what was being left unsaid. Because this moment wasn't just about Lisa Carter. It was about trust. It was about the gap between what the public hears and what happens behind closed doors. And the biggest question remained, if this hadn't been caught on tape, would the truth have ever come out? Because when the cameras are off, when no one is watching, what's really being said? If this made you think, stay informed, because knowing the full story isn't just important. It's everything.